up now, or Jason Bartlett, you're up now.
Yes, sir. So I'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. The Caroline County Broadband Advisory Committee on February 15th, 2021 at 7 p.m. Do we want to start with presentations and reports?
We're going to do a couple of amendments.
Okay.
We're going to amend the agenda to give unfinished business report of VATI from Mr. Sadler. And then I guess new business will add a couple of, or we'll add the schools. Mr. Bowman has a couple of projects from the schools. So if it's okay with you, we can add those two to the agenda.
That's perfect. Thank you. So I've added those in here, and I'd also like to add underneath new business, we can discuss some Starlink information that has come out this week or since last Monday when we did the agenda.
Great. Oh, and I like this interactive agenda that David's working on as we speak. And that's okay.
All right, so we'll go ahead and get started.
Get started while he makes the agenda right.
That'll work. Presentations and reports. Does anybody have any presentations or reports that they want to go over? All right.
I don't think we have any.
Okay. So we will go into, I guess the unfinished business would be the next thing that we go into. Or is that where we would go to next? Number 2A?
That's right. We don't have anything necessarily from a last meeting that would be on consent agenda or anything we'd have to approve. So you can go right to the unfinished business and let David talk about VATI.
Okay. David, if you have any information on VATI, that would be good. I know you're jumping all around. I apologize.
You can change the agenda later, David.
Oh, David, you're still on mute, just to let you know. I don't think we have admin rights to be able to unmute him. David,
okay. All right.
Okay, there you go.
Okay, so the update on VATI. So the VATI grant, there's about $20 million left in the VATI grant to be awarded after the large project in the Northern Neck and several other large projects were awarded kind of early. They came out to us and wanted all the jurisdictions who had had changes that had changes because of the RDOF funding. So the jurisdictions that had been affected by RDOF funding had to resubmit this week 911 addresses to all of the addresses to all of the houses that we would be serving under the VATI grant. So we had to go back to GIS and have them give us 911 addresses to all the houses that we had previously submitted. Those had a deadline of Thursday. They were submitted just before all the ice, I guess, started. So DHCD has talked with the consultant that we had hired, as well as the Broadband, Atlantic Broadband, and they're okay with us providing them with an accurate list of 911 addresses when they actually start the walkout. So according to Mr. Newport, Hang on just a second.
I think that's Jeff's dog or yours.
That's my dog. So those addresses have been given out or provided to DHCD or to our consultant and Mr. Newborg, but we will give them an actual listing of the 911 addresses that would be served once the engineering, has gotten further in, and that would be after we were awarded. They seemed to think it was still looking good for us. DHCD had no negative comments about our application, so we still have a strong application that's pending. We're hoping to hear back from that shortly. The one concern that I brought up to DHCD through our consultant and through Mr. Newborg from Atlantic Broadband was that due to privacy concerns, we would not want the list of 911 addresses to be released publicly like the rest of the application has been. So they seem to think they could accommodate that. Not that the actual 911 addresses would necessarily be, confidential information, but it would be considered sensitive information. So therefore, we've requested that they not release that publicly. So that's where we're at. I think that's everything that we know at this point. We'll make sure that we keep everybody up to date if anything changes.
Okay. May I ask a question, David?
Yes, sir.
The fact that we're in this grant with other counties, several other counties, they also had to provide 911 addresses, or were told to do that?
Yes, and the whole reason that we had to submit the updated list of 911 addresses because the areas that we had applied for in the VATI grant were affected by RDOF. Port Royal, both Port Royal North and South of 301, as well as some of the areas in Balti, did receive RDOF funding for the Starlink. But VATI came back and said that they did not consider Starlink to be a disqualifier. So even though we did receive money for Starlink in those areas, they did not make us remove our addresses. The big change was that in Lancaster County, the majority of their project received funding for another fixed wireless provider that pretty much disqualified the majority of Lancaster. So now we have the bulk of the houses in the contract. We're actually the biggest part of that application. And again, we and the partners and the other counties, we remain hopeful that it's going to work out for us.
Yeah, that's a big factor. I recall, and I think the committee does, that Lancaster was in a couple of different grant applications, and by them being out, that probably helps us in this process.
It did drop the overall ask that we had for VATI of our project, so that may be helpful. But the problem that we have is that the majority of addresses that they lost for the fixed wireless provider were in high concentrated areas. So while it did drop the overall ask to VATI, it was not proportional. So we lost more houses than we lost miles, for example. So the cost of drops of actual houses served dropped, but probably at a higher rate than what, the total mileage and the total cost of the project did not drop proportionally.
Kind of a good news, bad news. The good news is the cost went down. The bad news is there's less houses, so we'll have a higher cost per house ratio now.
Yes, slightly. not a tremendous amount actually, but that did change, and it was not exactly proportional. Mr.
Okay.
Thomas, since this is our first public meeting, it probably wouldn't be a bad idea if we went around and had everybody kind of introduce themselves so that people that might be joining us on the live stream tonight or on the recorded version of the live stream down the calendar a little bit would actually know, who we are.
That's a good point.
Very good point. Mr. Thomas?
Mr. Barlow, I'll let you start.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Jason Barlow. I'm the chairman of the committee. I live in Lower Caroline County in Dawn. Been in the county for many years, and hoping to actually see broadband brought to the county or expanded into the county.
Hey, I'm Jason Jacobus, Vice Chairman. Live in the lower middle part of the county, Sunshine Road, Doggett Fork area. Good cell phone coverage, and that's it. No dial-up, no cable, no nothing there. So definitely interested in expanding broadband access throughout the county. And David, I did have a question for later is, could you clarify more about the RDOF and Starlink and what does that do for the county? But you can answer that later. Thank you.
Charlie?
I'm Charlie Bowman. I'm the supervisor of technology for the schools.
Frank Beal?
I'm Frank Beal, live in downtown Sparta, Virginia, and been a resident of the county all my life, 63 years.
Okay, Jeff Seeley's on the phone. Jeff?
Yep, Jeff Seeley, representing the Bowling Green District and just trying to help with broadband.
Okay, and David, and I'll go last.
I'm David Sadler. I'm Director of Information Technology for the county. And also I serve as the liaison from the county staff to this committee, just to, help out, and try to keep things rolling. As a committee, we are committed to expanding broadband to everyone in Carolina, and that's what our number one goal is. We've in the past, just very recently, adopted a strategic plan to give us some ideas as to what we recommend. This committee serves as an advisory committee to the Board of Supervisors, so we don't have any authority or any authority to spend money. However, we are available to the board to hopefully do some background and research and help point them or steer them in the direction of projects that should be supported. That being said, we are in favor of everyone having broadband, but this committee is made up of a lot of technical people with IT backgrounds or ISPs. So therefore, we can look at proposed projects and hopefully help, decide whether it makes sense or not. I guess, is that fair, Mr. Thomas?
That's very fair, and I think that's a good thing. I'm Floyd Thomas, supervisor from the Mattaponi District. I'm the Board of Supervisors liaison for this committee that we created last year by asking for volunteers to help the county get broadband. I think David touched on that. We have got a very good group of volunteers who share the common goal of trying to bring broadband internet access and all the things that means to every citizen in the county. So I've been trying to do this for 10 years, and it's really up to a lot of vendors who we will mention as vendors in name only during this meeting. But it's really been up to them, and we're trying to figure out ways to use each vendor's capability to, as we say, bring broadband to as many as possible. And I think that's it. So
I think that's the team tonight.
Jason, did you want me to touch on the RDOF Starlink information a little bit more, you said?
Yeah, what does that mean for residents of the county, or is it, is it just apply to Vati only?
So the way I see it, if a county was awarded money through RDOF, then immediately they're not going to be eligible for more RDOF funding. So I think it's probably a really bad move as far as several of our census blocks were awarded money through RDOF. So we no longer have RDOF as an option as another source of funding for any projects that we might come up with. So they've kind of disqualified us from the RDOF funding. Now, for whatever reason, Vati decided to disqualify areas that were covered by RDOF. That's the Rural Digital Opportunity Fund, I believe, is what it stands for. So if an area got RDOF funding for Starlink, for whatever reason, Vati chose not to disqualify him. And I think part of the reason is that Vati has a higher threshold as to what they will actually class as broadband than the advertised speeds that initially Starlink will be providing. But Starlink is definitely a viable option. There was a lot of money awarded for a lot of areas in Caroline County. So, it is out there. It will not disqualify us, at least at this time, from Vati. But at the same time, just to give you a little background, Jason, in the Northern Neck, in Lancaster County, a lot of that county received RDOF funding for a fixed wireless provider that will use a combination of fiber backbone to fixed wireless points that will provide service to Lancaster. So for that reason, the speeds on that fixed wireless system were higher, and therefore they disqualified. Vati decided, and this is midstream. This is after the applications were submitted, the process was defined, the rules were set. Vati came back and said, no, if you receive RDOF funding, then you can't get Vati funding for the same areas. So we're kind of, and that's the reason why I think a lot of you may remember that back in September, October, we were hoping and we were being told by the state that hopefully sometime in November, December, we would actually have an award. And here we are now, February 15th, and still hoping that we're going to have an award. So I think did that answer your question?
Yeah, that's perfect. One follow-up would be what the areas of Caroline that aren't serviced by the Vati grant, how do they take advantage of the RDOF Starlink? Or is that totally off the table?
David, Starlink and RDOF are really two different things. The differentiator for RDOF and the Vati grant is the Rural Digital Opportunity Fund is run through the FCC. So that's a federal program. Vati is a state program. So the state is saying if you got federal money, you don't get our state money. And that's how they're trying to help spread the money around, so to say. I don't believe there is any real timeline defined for RDOF money. So we could get the grant and still not, or there's no deadline for them to make it happen, I think is what the reality is.
I think they have to be, I think 30 to 40% up in 2 years, 100% up in 6 years, and then they get paid over 10 years. So they're kind of financing the projects up front. That being said, I look at Starlink as Starlink was coming whether they got RDOF money or not, because their satellites were already going in the air before they ever probably applied for RDOF. So this is just an extra shot of funding for them. But at the same time, Starlink's not able to say address by address who can get their service and who can't. So Starlink will cover Caroline County, and it will be an option for people in Caroline to have, a viable, fairly stable internet. I'm hearing some concerns that that some of the experts are saying that once Starlink is about 40 to 50% congested, or 40 to 50% of their target customers have been served, that they're going to have a hard time delivering speeds that they're advertising. And this is coming from some pretty knowledgeable people in the industry. So that in itself may be part of the reason why VADI decided not to disqualify our areas from VADI, just because they received Starlink funding and RDOF. The other question that I have, and finding someone who can answer that, it has been impossible up to this point. But what does it mean if we did receive RDOF funding to help Starlink? Does that have any change in what is expected from potential customers in those areas? Is Starlink going to assist them with some of the cost? I think it's around $500 for the equipment and $99 a month.
Right.
But the information from Starlink has been, nothing other than what some of you guys probably have learned since last week. This might not be a bad time for Jason to bring us up to speed on what he's found out about Starlink recently, because there's been a lot of changes in the last week to 10 days with Starlink.
Yes, there has. And I'll be glad to bring everybody up to date. I was actually going to ask if we wanted to do that, since we've been talking so much about Starlink right now. First of all, Starlink is a internet-based, satellite internet-based company that Elon Musk has put up into space. He is building out a network fabric and basically a blanket across the globe in outer low Earth orbit. Now, most people, when they think of satellite internet, they think of some of the other big satellite internet companies out there with high latency. You can't do video games over it. You really can't stream media. You can't do Zoom calls. You can't work remotely because of the high latency factor that comes from that. And that's because those satellites are in geosynchronous orbit. So they are in fixed orbit around whatever point that you're supposed to be hitting against. With these low Earth orbit satellites, they're 60 times closer to the Earth. And so your ping time or your latency time is running, and I've seen current videos of people doing it on YouTube. They're running at about 30 milliseconds of a ping time, which is not as fast as cable broadband, but it is well within inside of the same latency that you would see from your cell phone provider if you did a latency test to your cell phone provider out to the internet. So with that, I've seen multiple speed tests where people measure the amount of data they can download and how quickly they can download it and upload it. And people are seeing on average around anywhere from 70 to 150 megabits per second download, with anywhere from 15 to 30 upload. To put that in comparison, DSL, which myself and Mr. Thomas have, I don't know whether anybody else on here has it, but we run 5 megabit DSL, which if you are streaming a Zoom call and somebody decides to surf the internet at the same time, the Zoom call will cease to exist, I'm guessing, at that point. So that is this bandwidth that they're looking to serve is enough to at least stream multiple TV shows from streaming providers and be able to work from at home without having any issues. The equipment upfront cost, if you go out to starlink.com now, it's a $99 like pre-register. I did that last week, and they are saying anywhere from mid 2021 to the end of 2021, somewhere in that time frame is when I would actually receive the package for me to try it here in Lower Dawn in Caroline County. So that kind of gives a brief overview. I don't know whether, is there anything else anybody has any questions on, or?
I think you touched on the big thing, which was speed, which is really important, because even if you have DSL, that would be an attractive option.
Correct.
Jason, I heard there was an Amazon version that's similar to this. Is that anywhere at the same stage as Starlink?
It is not at the same stage as Starlink. Starlink is so much further along right now. There was actually a battle between the Amazon version and the Starlink, or the Elon Musk version. The FCC had to weigh in and they worked it out. But there are multiple satellite companies that are trying to bring up multiple fabrics across the globe, so that way they can offer these or this internet service to rural communities. And Starlink is not only going to be a US based, they've already got people over in the UK that are on Starlink. And the ultimate goal is if you have an RV and you're going to take a trip, you take your satellite dish with you, you put it up, or you're on a boat, you put it up on your boat, and then you have internet. That is the ultimate goal. The ultimate goal of this process also is to have 1 gigabit download, which is comparable to current fiber-based internet downloads. That has not been reached yet, but that is Elon Musk's ultimate goal, that he wants to have gigabit internet served through Starlink at a reasonable cost to all rural America. So, and that's pretty much all I've got right now. Right now, it's currently in beta mode. There was actually a school. I sent out the article to the Broadband Advisory Committee 2 weeks ago, I think it was, that I sent it out to you guys.
Yeah.
That there's actually a school in Southwest Virginia. Is it Wise County?
Wise County, I think so.
Okay. They actually got awarded beta testing for Starlink and received 40 to 50 Starlink satellites to distribute out to students and faculty that do not have broadband available to them. So that was really a nice thing to be able to see it here in Virginia. I have not seen any speed tests from those, but they are active in Virginia for beta testing. Any other questions? Okay. Do we have any other unfinished business at this point? Do we need to move on to number 3, which is to discuss? Go ahead.
Real quick, just so everyone on the committee knows, Comcast has started enforcing data caps. So customers that are on Comcast with standard plans now do have a 1.2 terabyte data cap. So it's no longer unlimited data unless you subscribe to unlimited data. And according to Comcast, this only affects residential customers, not businesses. So it is something, they have a nice video telling you how many high definition movies you can watch, or how many hours of school classes you can stream without going over the 1.2 terabytes. But it's definitely a sales pitch, because if you are watching not HD movies, but 4K movies, and you have a couple students that are streaming classroom all day, it is not impossible to exceed 1.2 terabytes of data in a plan in a month. So I know that sounds kind of foreign to a lot of people that are on much tighter data plans, but it's just something that we need to be aware of, that there are data caps now in place for the majority of Comcast residential customers.
David, can I add one thing? Since you mentioned Comcast, they do have, and this is something we need to make sure we advertise and get out to the public. For those people that are in the Comcast footprint, right now, which is pretty much the western side of the county and a subdivision in Mattapan, and I think a subdivision in Reedy Church. Comcast offers what they call the Comcast Internet Essentials program. It's for people who haven't signed up before, maybe for cost or some other reason. But if you're in their footprint, you can get Comcast for $9.95 a month. It's basically their home internet. So students that are home and that hadn't signed it, they can at least get internet, for that much a month. And from discussions with the Comcast rep, they are willing to work with anybody within the county who needs it.
And there are some qualifications as far as income and all that you do have to qualify for that. But Comcast is offering that to houses, residents that's within the existing Comcast footprint. So for example, if you live outside of the existing footprint, they're not going to expand the internet to your house to give it to you for that price. But if you're in a subdivision that already has Comcast and you've just never been able to afford it, they will talk to you about offering that service. Mr. Thomas, that also included installation costs and everything else. So the entire cost scheme across the board is reduced if you qualify.
Right, and there's no contract term, no credit check. In-home Wi-Fi, 25 megabits per second is what they're advertising on their website now. And it is an apply now thing, but that's something there. I'm sure a lot of people in Caroline in that footprint can qualify. So, it's going to help get students, on the internet quickly. Thank you.
Okay. Any other unfinished business anybody has? Okay. Well, do we want to jump down to number 3, which is the discussion of a possible project with a fixed wireless provider?
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Sadler, did you have anything on that one? Okay, perfect.
Okay, so we have shared a memo to this committee that describes what we're being asked this evening. And so Caroline County staff and board members have been in discussion with an unnamed vendor on the possible expansion to make broadband services available to approximately 361 homes on Jericho Road. It's 286 homes on Jericho Road and about 75 homes on Anderson Mill Road. The estimated total cost of this project would be $3,096,925. The county's share of the cost of that project would be $2,672,750, with the vendor contributing $424,175 to the project. I do have a spreadsheet with some more details that we will share here, as well as maps of the project area that delineates the proposed footprint of the project.
Miss David, if you can hold on just one second, just so everybody understands, we skipped the wireless provider. This is actually number 4, which is the expansion proposal from the Board of Supervisors. But that's fine. Go ahead and continue on. We're into it. Let's go ahead and go with this one.
I'm sorry, I didn't jump back to my agenda before. I'm searching for documents to share.
You are perfect. Thank you, sir.
So the project area, the estimated completion time for the project, if the county commits to it, will be 6 to 9 months from approval. The vendor emphasized that the cost figures that we have and that we'll share here shortly are very, very rough estimates. They're what's called a desktop estimate. So they can increase or decrease significantly from the price that they've estimated. For example, if they go out and find that they can't use overhead poles and they have to go underground to serve an area, the cost would go up. The vendor is not willing to incur the expense and devote the manpower or hours needed to complete the field engineering analysis unless the board indicates that there is a serious interest in the project. During a recent closed session of the board asked for a recommendation from the Broadband Advisory Committee. So the Broadband Advisory Committee has several options available to it, which includes but not limited to option number 1, recommend to proceed with the proposal in principle and request the vendor to proceed with field work needed to help define the cost or develop a definite cost based on the cost sharing arrangements that we just discussed. Option number 2 would be recommend not to participate outright due to the high costs to the county. Option number 3 would be recommend that we attempt to negotiate a better cost share percentage from the unknown vendor. And option number 4 would be ask the vendor to partner with Caroline County to complete the field engineering study and work in support of submission of a future VATI grant in the next available funding cycle. So that's at least 4 different options that this committee would have to recommend. Now, I will say in support of option number 3 as well, the vendor that will remain unnamed in this discussion has partnered with some neighboring counties and offered a much higher contribution than what they offered us. So there is a possibility that if we get serious or the county were to go back and try to negotiate, we could see a little bit of an increase in what they're offering to send or offering for the project. So those are the options that we have, and we'll try to answer any questions that we can. Again, remaining the vendor is remaining unnamed at this point because we are actually still in negotiation, and so for that reason they'll remain unnamed until a later time.
Okay, does anybody have any questions?
David, is this a fixed wireless solution?
It is not, Mike. It's a hybrid or it would be a cable type construction, coax.
Yeah, fiber
Okay,
coax
I just got
combination.
confused.
Sorry, I stepped on you, Mike. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, that's fine. I just got confused as I think we're mixing up 2 projects.
Yeah, this project is the actual wired project that has come to the county for discussion. And really, did you get a chance to review? And I guess we should ask you and Frank and Charlie if you had a chance to review the project when David sent out the data last week.
I saw a couple of maps. Is that the guy?
Yes.
Yes.
Jericho Road?
Yes. Yes.
I've seen them.
Okay.
And I saw the spreadsheet.
Maybe Frank, did you have anything to add?
Yes.
You've done a lot of it.
I have seen them as well. My first thought would be, I think, to go back and maybe can't see what the agenda had on it right now, but anyway, the option of maybe renegotiating. And then
number 3.
once that has been done, I feel like it would make sense to maybe look at one of the other options after that. But I would start looking for them to maybe contribute a little bit more.
Yes, I agree, especially what David said, that they are contributing more in other cases.
And I would agree that, let's go back and see whether the company can provide more per pass, especially like everybody said, since they've done it in other counties. or offered it in other counties, and then maybe even do something with option number 4 to see whether they can give us a better price, and then will they partner with us to do the VATI grant, and see whether we can help reduce some of the costs to the county, because that's $2.6 million to the county for these areas.
Now, the one comment that I would have, and again, I'm gonna, I would stay out of either proposing or voting any of those options, since I am just a liaison. But having dealt with VATI quite a bit over the past going on 12 months now, they would be more favorable of a project that encompasses all houses, not just. If you look at the, can you guys see the spreadsheet that I have shared now?
Yes, sir.
Mhm.
All right, so right here, the project is broken down into 2 areas. If you look at like column A through F, that's what's called row or right of way only. So that would cover the houses in the project area only up to a standard, I believe, 300 feet from the actual Comcast line. The second columns G through I, which is a higher cost. Some of the houses in that project area fall under the long distance estimate or a long drop estimate. That would be in excess of the 300 feet. And that runs the cost of the price up. Based on my conversations with DHCD about the VATI grant, they are much more in favor of a project that covers every house in a geographic swath, is what they've used many, many times. So from a VATI grant perspective, we'd be far better off to shoot for the entire row and long drop project using the numbers. It runs the cost up, but at the same time, I think it would be more favorable to DHCD because it's not picking and choosing. One phrase that DHCD has used in the past has been cherry picking, and so if you are looking only to serve the right of way houses and not the long distance houses, then to them that could lead them to believe that we're only picking the cheaper of the 2. And not covering every house in that geographic swath. So that's the only extra input above what we're looking at on the spreadsheet that I would have to add.
So with your numbers that you had on your spread or on the original document, you had $2.672 million. So that is column N, or actually let's say cell N5, correct?
Yes, that
Okay.
is the total cost of the project for right of way houses as well as long drops.
Okay, perfect.
Now, if we, in all fairness, comparing this to, for example, the VATI project that we applied for in the current cycle, the mileage is almost the same. The overall cost is just a little bit higher. But the cost to the county is higher because there's no VATI funding in there, as well as the concentration of houses. So if you go back and you look at the amount of contribution from the vendor, this number is lower because of because this number right here is lower because of the lower number of houses.
Right.
So overall, I mean, these numbers are not just way out there. They're fairly close and should be, possibly looked at a little bit closer. They're not way out. The projects compare. Number of miles, I think on the VATI project was like 48 or 49 miles, and we're looking at 47.6 on this.
But
So-
is there a difference in going across in the totals? Because 1.9 and 869 should be 2.7 something, and we got 2.6. Or am I reading it wrong?
I think you're looking at the 869 and the 19.
Right.
Is that the total county contribution? But that's
I thought that was the total cost, but shouldn't that be 2.7?
No, that's the one.
So it looks like column B and column I should add up to be column L.
okay.
Or
Okay. D, well, all right, we gotta look at that to make sure, but I think, yeah, you sent the spreadsheet, so I'll look at it again. Okay, thank you.
So if we were to play with these numbers just a little bit, I mean, just kind of guesstimate, there's no right or wrong answer to this. But if we were to go back to the provider and say, can you help us out a little bit on this deal? And they gave us a little bit more money off of that. We could potentially bring the county's contributions down to, let's say, and we're going to play with magical numbers. Let's say $2.6 million. They give us a $72,000 credit or something like that. If we go back to VATI, will VATI split that 2.6 with us, or how does that work? Does VATI look at the over 3 million and split the 3 million, or how does that number work out?
So the way the VATI grant works is you have a contribution from the locality as well as a contribution from the vendor. And then you have an ask from VATI.
Okay.
The magic number from VATI tends to be 60%. So they want the cost, they want the contributions from the vendor, contributions from the county to equal about roughly 40% of the project, where they would contribute 60%. But all that would be spelled out specifically in the VATI grant application. So that's about where we're at now with the current VATI grant, with the contributions from Atlantic Broadband and with the pledged contributions from Caroline County. We end up with an ask from VATI, I believe, of like 61%. So it's within that ballpark, but they're not going to contribute more than the 60% area. They're not a 80 or 90 or 100%. So therefore, if you ask the vendor to go up on your contributions, because the way we did it in the current VATI grant application is the vendor contributed or pledged to contribute X number of dollars, and the county matched that. So if we ask Comcast to go up in their contribution, and then we would likely need to go up in ours just to try to get the ask from VATI down. But those are some numbers that we can crunch, if we get down to that point. My main concern is from that vendor, we need that vendor to understand that short of hard concrete numbers, we're not able to apply for any VATI money. So we can't necessarily apply for VATI money based on rough estimates.
Right.
So we have to, somehow convey to them that we are interested, but at the same time, we need hard numbers to be able to start looking at the application, figuring out what the contributions would be, for example. So I guess that's my concern, is how do we do that?
Okay. So does anybody have any other further discussion? So the board sent this down to us to ask us what our recommendation was. Mr. Sadler, can you bring back up the other document that gave us our 4 options?
Yep. Let me see if I can find that.
The beauties of multi-screens. You got to love it.
Actually, I wish I had multi-screen.
Missed that.
Okay, so are we looking at the memo?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
All right, let's see if I can get this to scroll down now. So these are the options. And again, these are not the only options, but these are 4 recommended options that we have right off the top. And if we come up with more options and we want to make a recommendation and send it back to the board, again, because we can only recommend, we're not the authority. We don't have the authority to actually agree to anything.
So I'll first give everybody a second to read all 4 of these options, and then find out if anybody has an option 5 that they want to throw out.
And as Frank suggested, option 5 might be option 3 and option 4 combined.
Correct. And that's what I'm thinking is, we can combine a couple options together and say, this is our recommendation back to the board that we do, X and then go to Y if we have to.
Now, one other interesting point that I run across, if you look at our strategic plan and the number of passings per mile, I think we came up with 15 passings per mile that we would definitely recommend. Below that, we would explore other options. If you take the number of passings and divide it by the overall miles, we are below the 14 passings or 15 passings per mile with this project. However, at some point, we may want to look at our strategic plan. We do have in areas that are under 15 passings per mile, we have the option to still consider this because it is the most sensible option for that area. But we may want to look at maybe dropping that number a little bit on our strategic plan. My fear is that with this project and with the other VATI project, we pretty much covered everything 15 or even close to 15 passings per mile. So do we want to limit ourselves by that strategic plan? But we still can vote to recommend this project and not go against our strategic plan because the number is below 15, but in our strategic plan, we have the option to try to explore other options for that as well. So if that makes sense.
Makes perfect sense. All right. So does anybody have anything that they want to discuss in option 5, or do we combine a couple of these options that we have up here and make an option 5 and take that back to the board? Does anybody have any comments? All right. Well, Frank and David, I like your option number 5, which is let's take option number 3 and combine it down with option number 4. Let's first see whether we can get a better price with the cost sharing. And then potentially look at option number 4 to see whether we can help save the county and the citizens money with that, and see whether we can apply for the VATI grant and take that back to the board.
So, Jason, I guess at this point, I'm not going to make a motion or second a motion or vote on a motion since I'm a liaison on this committee. But I think if that's kind of the way we're leaning, a motion would possibly be would be proper at this point.
Okay. Do you want, as being the chairman, can I make a motion, or do we want to put that off to Charlie or Frank?
The Board of Supervisors rules allow the chairman to make a motion. So we're gonna assume that we're under the same rules. So if you'd like to make a motion, that would be fine, especially with so few people as part of our committee.
Okay. Did somebody speak up just a second ago?
I was going to say, I'll move to combine 2 and 4 for an option 5.
2 and 4 or 3 and 4? 2 is
I'm sorry,
recommend.
I'm sorry,
not-
yes, 3 and 4, I apologize.
Okay. Okay, perfect.
I'll second.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Oh, can I say one thing first? 'Cause
Yeah, no, you're
I
fine.
guess we've already discussed, but typically
Yeah.
you have your motions and seconds and then you do discussion as well. But
That's
anyway,
true.
just to throw this in there, curious about what we feel like the time frame would be as far as finding out and then possibly proceeding with option 4. Any idea what that would look like?
The upcoming VATI grant process, I think the initial deadline for a letter of intent to try to apply is the 20th of July, roughly. If it follows the same schedule as last time, with an August deadline of actually having the application completed. So
Gotcha.
money would supposedly be awarded towards the end of the year, or if it's like this year, it might be sometime next year.
Roger.
But roughly 9 months for the project to be awarded. Once the project is awarded, I think they have 12 to 18 months to complete it. So it's a tight time frame once the project is awarded. They're all just rough estimates, Frank, because
Exactly.
the hard deadlines that we receive for this process has been fogged. So I mean, we're all we can do is just base it on this year.
Right.
Okay.
Jason, you can ask for any more discussion and then ask for a
Yep.
vote.
Yeah. Anybody else have any other discussion on this one? Sorry, I jumped the gun last time. My apology.
Jason, the only thing I would ask is that when we vote by voice, since I'm going to have to try to come up with some type of written record of what we've done tonight.
Okay. So state your name and whether or not you vote for it, or how do we want to do that?
Yeah, you can just call the roll of members besides myself, and ask how they wish to vote, I guess would work.
Okay. Well, let me ask one quick question. Does that apply to Board of Supervisor members too? Are they part of this vote, abstaining from it?
We're not going to vote. We're not going to vote.
Okay, perfect. So, Mr. Vosberg?
I agree.
Okay. Mr. Bowman?
Aye.
Mr. Beal?
Aye.
And Mr. Jacobus?
Aye.
And then Jason Barlow, I also. Anybody that I missed?
I think you got them all.
Okay. I almost said Mr. J Stream or Mr. Stream Feed, but then I realized what that one was. So.
Oh, he's disappeared from my screen.
All right. So we'll combine option 3 and option 4, and take that one back to the Board of Supervisors for them to vote upon that or action upon that.
Jason,
we
when
wanna-
we go back to the fixed wireless, could I say something about them?
Yes, sir. If you want, that's a good segue into it. So,
Okay. We were contacted a while back by a fixed wireless provider, and it kind of links into what David said about Lancaster County, where there's a fiber backbone and fixed wireless provider providing internet at possibly a cheaper cost. And we had looked at them in a couple of locations and were trying to figure out where they were. Jason Barlow had actually talked to them about another area, and I think we need to take a serious look, or at least recommend the county take a look at them, maybe not in the area we talked about before, because I think Frank said there were technical challenges. But there should be places where we can connect them quickly to, needy people. Needy people being folks who don't have internet in the county, because it's a quick solution that I think we could do fairly fast, and that's kind of really what I wanted to say. Is maybe that's something we need to look at for a timely thing right now, and that's it.
Okay. I would agree if there's some way that we can get broadband spread out across the county to places that are underserved with broadband at this point, that would be a wonderful thing. So, I mean, we can look into that more. I can contact the wireless provider again, and maybe get some more information and go forth with that. What is everybody else's opinion at this point? Wow, all I'm hearing is crickets today.
Oh, yeah, I certainly think it's worth exploring.
Okay. I don't think that will be our final solution by any way, shape, or form. And I don't think that's what we want to consider as our final solution. Our final solution, or our ultimate goal, is to put fixed broadband wherever we can that meets with inside of our agenda, the overall strategic plan of the committee. Wherever we can, fixed wireless would be a wonderful thing. Fixed internet would be a good thing. But if we had to subsidize some of that with wireless to get us there quicker, because of the different timelines, that would be a good thing.
Right. And I think maybe we can, talk to that wireless provider or any other wireless provider, and maybe come up with a possible project or plan and bring it back to the committee or send it to the Board of Supervisors.
Okay.
And I know you've just said what we all said. It's our goal is to be wired or faster as possible, and this is a solution that's quick and could be mobile. We could do it in one area and then move it to another area or something like that.
I have a question for Charlie Bowman. Charlie, did you negotiate the contract with T-Mobile for the schools?
We didn't. No, that contract, I believe, was negotiated at a state level. It wasn't done individually by the school district, to my knowledge.
Okay, gotcha. Is there any point of contact at T-Mobile? Just in the vein of, there is the fixed wireless LTE offered from the major providers, but I don't know if they offer it to any of the zip codes for the county. And if there was, we could find that out and try to use that as a place to educate people to go to that technology.
Well, yeah, I'd certainly be. I could certainly share my point of contact at T-Mobile with the group.
Yeah, appreciate that, and yeah, that's something I could pick up the banner on and investigate that, and then the same with Verizon and AT&T. I guess it's just getting a hold of the right person.
Do we have any contacts with Verizon or AT&T as wireless providers for the county?
Not to my knowledge, as far as a purchase agreement. I think we do that off a state contract. David, is that the way we get our phones and things?
We purchase off a federal government contract, so that's all negotiated by state and federal agencies.
You mean the GSA schedule?
Did you say GSA or TSA?
GSA.
Yeah, it's under a GSA contract. It's all negotiated through the federal side.
So that's not necessarily the best prices we could get, but it is a contract vehicle. Now, you trying to say,
Yeah, 'cause
Jason,
anything-
you think the county should get a contract or purchase large volumes off of an existing contract for citizens?
I don't think you can do that.
No, I
don't
was
think you-
more interested into why do they not offer the fixed residential LTE services for the zip codes of our county? You know, I know that maybe not every single person is covered to a satisfactory limit, but I would imagine that some people are. And is it just a point of when you go to sign up on their website, do they not support our zip codes? Is there something else going on there? How do we get added? You know, that kind of thing, because it could be a solution for, I don't know, a percentage of the county, because if the mobile hotspots work for, you know, the students, you know, just trying to take that a step further with the fixed service with antennas outside the house. But I'll take that as a, you know, I can try to do some more research and find some contacts and get some more information.
So for just trying to fully understand item number 3, that we're discussion of a possible project with a fixed wireless provider, is that any fixed wireless provider that we're talking about right now? Or is this one in particular that we're talking about right now?
Honestly, it could be any fixed wireless provider. If there's one out there that can serve Caroline County and get us decent broadband to be able to, you know, for distance learning, for people to be able to work from at home and be able to actually use the internet. If we can come up with a wireless provider, whoever it is, whether it's one of the, you know, if it's cellular or if it's a fixed wireless that, you know, we can rebroadcast internet, you know, from a tower or something, that would also be good. Do you have any ideas or?
No, I'm just trying to fully comprehend exactly what it is we're discussing.
And it's just that piece number 3 is a short-term solution, not the long-term solution to some places that could be, you know, further out as far as getting broadband brought to their area. So how can we get something there quick to help, you know, the people in those areas?
And so this discussion would be the possibility of the county possibly considering using county funds to supplement a wireless provider to possibly get stuff to residents, correct?
I think, and that's why I asked Jason that question. I don't think the county would buy mobile hotspots or things of that nature, but maybe work with a provider like we would work with the wired providers to provide some sort of solution.
I'm just trying to think of what wireless technology there is that would even come close to doing anything that would be usable from a wireless standpoint for to justify the cost of any contribution from the county. So just knowing what I know about wireless technology and what would be needed in order to make it so that it would be available to a large quantity of people, or at least even, I don't know, I just can't see where you could justify the cost for possibly just a few people to be connected. And I think we're talking in terms of just as, for instance, you know, an internet provider that's trying to do something with 5 gigahertz, which we know won't penetrate trees and things of that nature. You're not going to have, you may reach, you know, maybe a small handful, maybe a dozen people, but the cost to get that stuff up and running and to get internet to them would be way, I think, more expensive than what it is to do a fiber or a wired solution, just to justify those, or just to satisfy those particular small number of people, if that makes any sense. So I would say that we proceed very cautiously about doing anything wireless without a proven track record of service to areas that are set up just like ours are.
Does anyone on this committee have any firsthand knowledge of what is it, Frank? Is it King William or King William?
Yeah, King William supposedly, from what I have heard, has I think they've done something down there. Maybe Jason can elaborate on that.
I mean, I know there's a wireless provider that's coming into the King William area that is standing up broadband through the fixed wireless solution down there. They have their wireless technology on 2 towers in the area. And they've got 1 tower turned on. They're waiting on the other tower to be turned on, so that way they can start servicing more people down here or down in the lower portion, adjacent to the lower portion of Caroline County. So I know that that's currently what they're working on right now.
Is it King and Queen, Frank, that's on 721?
King and Queen is on 721.
Yep.
Do you have any firsthand knowledge of how that's working out, or what kind of coverage they're getting in penetration from the towers that they're using?
The only thing that I know about their system, which has been up and running for right many years now in comparison to anything else, their whole system was reliant on using 900 megahertz technology, which is extremely limited in the amount of bandwidth. It will penetrate trees, but we're talking internet speeds of, probably in the 3 to 5 megabit per second range. So not much better than, or as good as probably what DSL is. Other than that, I don't know a lot about their stuff, and I'm not even, maybe Jeff Seeley might be able to elaborate some on that. Because I know he's talked with them before, I believe.
Yeah, they built that system on their emergency services backbone, and they were augmenting that. What really helped them is when fiber came down through King and Queen, they've actually been able to augment all of that at their tower so that they're not backhauling it with microwave anymore. But they were only able to give limited service, and it doesn't reach out that far from the various nodes that they have. But they are actually transitioning and trying to sell that system at this point to an ISP to take over.
Yep, that would make sense.
Well, David, is it possible you can talk to our VATI grant partner and see what the Lancaster fiber wireless solution is like?
I can tell you that in discussions that we've had, there's a company called Starry. It's a nationwide company that has put a lot of effort into getting RDOF funding across the country in different areas like Colorado and different areas. It's a hybrid fiber wireless solution, but to our knowledge, they don't have any track record in
well, David,
rural
what I've heard is they're just empty LLCs that were bidding RDOF dollars to see if they could get them, and they've got 12 different LLCs across the country. And once they get the money, they're going to spin up and try to do this.
And I was trying to be constructive, but if you look at the RDOF funding and the RDOF awards, the LLCs that receive money that are owned under the parent company of Starry all received their LLCs after the RDOF funding was announced. The RDOF auction was announced. So it's a lot of brand new LLCs that were spun up, 12 of them, that got a lot of RDOF money, but basically don't have any track record of delivering anything. So it's very possible that by VATI eliminating areas that received RDOF funding, they may have very well eliminated their best option to get internet. but that's not for, I guess, for us to decide.
All right, my goal was just to look at any and all options possible. So if it's an option, I'm willing to look at it. And then
The problem is most companies don't even have, I think they have on paper what they think what they're gonna lay out, but they don't have any proven technology anyplace yet.
Exactly.
I think Starry itself may have some existing customers in metropolitan areas where they will beam wirelessly, for example, to a large apartment complex. And from that apartment complex, they're able to take the service and deliver it to all the apartments in that complex. But everything that I've read on Starry, they don't have any track record as far as providing internet to rural areas. So it'll be really interesting to see if those LLCs are even able to deliver. I've heard rumor that there may be some investigation going on as far as the whole process, but
Okay.
that's all I know about that. Jason, do you think it would be worth our time to reapproach any or the interested vendor to see if they want to come back at a later time? I think it's going to be important if we do that we find out ahead of time whether they're ready to announce that they're looking at this, or whether the board would want the option to be able to discuss it in closed session down the road.
You're on mute, Jason. You're on mute.
Well, the one time I actually mute myself and get to unmute it. No, I agree. I can reapproach that vendor and ask them to please provide maybe some people that they've turned on, so that way we can actually see some real numbers of what the services that they're offering. And then maybe at a later date, a couple months down the road, we can potentially have them come in. I can get advance notice of that so we can determine whether we'll go, how the session goes at that point with the vendor, if that works.
Again, I don't have a vote on this committee, but I think it would be good if they could provide us some numbers of customers that they've served, the speeds that they're getting, and even if they could allow us to go down and do some field testing ourselves before we commit a lot of effort to a project that would involve them.
Okay.
Remember, this is the prime time of year for anybody wireless because there's no leaves on the tree.
Exactly. So we can move that to, we can table that for, 2 sessions from now, and let's revisit it. And then I can reach out to them, let them get a little bit more, let them get a few more customers underneath their belt before we, broach them and take a look at it for Caroline County. Okay. Anything else?
I think we're ready for an update from Charlie Bowman on some projects that they're looking at, maybe.
As we were going through the meeting, I realized I don't have a lot of the details on the projects that I mentioned, so I prefer to bring that to the next meeting where I'm more prepared to give you all the details in terms of numbers and timelines.
Okay.
Charlie, just to mention again the 2 things you talked about, not that we need a lot of detail, but just to make sure we all know what's going on in each other's backyard. You're looking at trying to wire school buses, and you've got an RFP out for your wide area network, which is just the internal school network, right?
Right. Yeah. The school buses is through federal grant. We're looking, and it's not our entire fleet. There'll be a pilot program, so a couple buses at first. And yeah, we do have the RFP out for our WAN and our connectivity.
Okay. And again, the WAN is the school's wide area network,
That's correct.
which would just be for the schools and nobody else.
Leased lit fiber. Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
One other thing that I would like to mention just briefly, Mr. Seeley in the past has expressed to this committee the interest in getting, possibly talking to Atlantic Broadband and expanding into some of the area down in the Milford area, and in particular, the Milford Industrial Park. We did talk to Atlantic Broadband. They are considering some possible expansion into the Milford Industrial Park. And so we're talking with them now and waiting some estimates as far as the cost of that project to the people that are in that park, so that we can look at it and see, what action, if any, we want to recommend taking in that project. Is that fair, Mr. Seeley and Mr. Thomas?
Jeff, you can go first.
I would say yes.
Okay. And they actually serve much of the Milford area. They just do not serve that industrial park. So then again, if I could get them across the bridge, but that's a whole nother story. So, okay.
If I do get back any numbers or anything, I'll be glad to share that with this committee and work with Jason on getting it in an upcoming meeting for discussion, if that's okay with everyone.
Yes, David, I would be very interested in what they're doing in the Milford Industrial Park. I work for the Bell Foundry over there, and they're still using satellite because they have no other option.
Mike, that's a different industrial park, I'm afraid.
Uh-oh.
We're talking about the Milford Industrial Park where E.M. Gray all the way down through to Hoover.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
That's
Okay.
the Milford Industrial Park we're talking about.
I was thinking where MC Dean is and all that.
Right.
Sorry, my bad.
It's okay.
No, but that's a great expansion spot though, Mike. Okay. Jason, I think we're at number 5, which is next meeting date and time.
Yeah, so I was looking ahead. We said last meeting that we would meet the third Monday of every month, which it looks like next month it'll also be the 15th of March at 7 p.m. Is everybody still good with that?
That's good.
No federal holidays on that day?
No.
All right. Do we need to vote on the next date, or do we just set that, or is that good enough? Or
You set the time and we will be there.
all right. So we'll just say March 15th at 7 p.m. And do I have a motion? Anything else anybody wants to talk about, or do we want to do a motion to adjourn?
We adjourn.
Go. Was that a motion or?
Yes,
Frank?
that was a move to adjourn.
Okay. All right. All in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. We will see everybody then on the 15th of March.
Thank you again for your time, gentlemen.
All right.